The silent lock, the void between stars, was always quiet, but silence carried secrets. A fleet of alien scouts drifted at the edge of a forgotten sector, their probes scattering into the darkness. Their mission was simple: find out what the unknown metal giant ahead of them truly was. The object looked like a warship, but not of any species they knew. Its shape was sharp, its armor dark, and its surface bristled with scars that told of many battles. The alien commander gave the order, and dozens of probes activated, surrounding the vessel in a silent web of light. Sensors locked on. Energy readings pulsed through the probes. The data streamed back in bursts. At first, the crew was calm. Just another derelict, they thought. Maybe a forgotten husk from a failed species. But as the scans deepened, the calm broke. The first shock came with the hull composition. It was not made of common alloys, not even of the rare materials pulled from dying stars. It was something denser, harder, built to resist weapons that could split moons. Every strike against it would take more energy than their entire fleet could burn in a battle. The second shock was the power core. The readings spiked and collapsed as if the ship itself were hiding its true strength. One moment it seemed dormant, dead. The next, it hummed like a star caged in metal. The alien technicians whispered to each other, their voices low with unease. And then, the third shock. The crew stared at the data in disbelief. Life signs, not one or two. Hundreds. Each one strong, steady, carrying an energy signature unfamiliar yet terrifying. The beings aboard radiated a kind of resilience no other race carried. It was as if the ship itself had fused with the will of its crew. The commander's eyes narrowed. They did not yet know what race this ship belonged to, but the fear creeping into the crew's voices told him the truth was dangerous. He silenced them with a single gesture, demanding discipline. The probes pushed deeper, now mapping the weapon systems. That was when the unease turned into dread. The weapons were not just advanced. They were brutal. They carried designs to shatter fleets, to burn worlds, to silence enemies without mercy. Each cannon was oversized, every missile bay packed with warheads whose radiation made their sensors stutter. Whoever built this ship had not designed it for exploration or defense. It was a war machine made for survival through destruction. One young officer dared to whisper, "If they are still alive." "What kind of war did they fight to build this?" No one answered. The commander clenched his fists behind his back. He felt something old stirring, a memory from his people's archives, warnings of a species that fought not for conquest, but for survival. A species that had clawed its way from weakness into unmatched strength. The probes sent their final reading, a mark on the hull. A simple engraving, worn but still visible, etched into the dark metal. The translation was quick. It was a single word: human. The silence in the alien bridge was crushing. Every officer looked to the commander, waiting for him to dismiss the fear, to tell them it was a mistake. But he said nothing, because deep inside, he knew it was no mistake. The legends whispered across the stars were real. Humanity, the forgotten fighters of old wars, the ones believed destroyed or lost, still lived. And worse, they had built ships like this. The commander gave the order to retreat the probes, but it was too late. The warship stirred. Its engines, long dormant, came alive with a low growl that shook through the void. Light rippled across its hull. The alien crew froze as their screens flickered, their systems jammed by signals too advanced to block. The ship they thought dead had awakened, and whoever was inside now knew they were being watched. The commander whispered in a voice that trembled despite his will. "We should not have looked." The awakening. The alien bridge was silent, but it was not the silence of calm. It was the silence of fear. Every officer stared at the screens as the human warship stirred. Engines glowed faintly, a soft light at first, then brighter like a star breaking through shadow. The ship did not rush to move. It rose slowly, deliberately, as though it had all the time in the universe. That calm movement was worse than any sudden attack. It felt like the warship was watching them. The alien commander barked an order. Shields rose. Weapons charged. The fleet pulled tighter into formation, but no one believed their defenses would hold. The scans had already told them this ship was built to break fleets. The probes still hung around the human vessel, recording every shift. Suddenly, one probe went dark. Then another. Then all of them. The alien crew gasped as the screens flickered and cleared. The warship had taken control, swallowing the signals whole. "Impossible," one officer whispered. "No ship should override our systems so fast." But it had. The alien commander clenched his jaw. He gave the order to pull the fleet back, but it was too late. A transmission cut across every channel, overriding their comms. At first, it was static. Then a voice. Not harsh, not alien. A human voice. Deep, steady, carrying a weight that pressed against their very bones. It spoke in a language none of them knew, yet somehow their translators caught it. "Who scans us?" The words rolled through the bridge like thunder. The crew shifted nervously. No one dared to answer. The commander forced himself to speak. His voice was steady, but his hands shook behind his back. "We are scouts. We meant no harm. We only wish to study—" The human voice cut him off. "You sent probes? You searched for our strength. That is not study. That is preparation." The crew froze. Preparation. The humans thought they were spies. Worse, they weren't wrong. The warship drifted closer. Its sheer size swallowed their sensors. It was not graceful like alien ships, but heavy, brutal, and filled with scars of battles won long ago. And yet even scarred, it looked alive. Every plate of armor seemed to breathe. Every weapon hummed as if ready for war. The alien commander swallowed hard. He gave the signal to retreat the fleet in slow reverse, but the humans were not done. The screens shifted again. This time, the aliens saw inside the warship. Not the full interior, but fragments, images sent directly into their systems. Rows of humans in dark uniforms. Faces calm, eyes sharp. Soldiers who looked like they had stared into war for years and never broken. Behind them, walls lined with weapons that had no alien equivalent. And deeper still, flashes of archives. Battles fought in space, on burning planets, in collapsing stations. Every image told the same truth. Humanity did not surrender. Humanity endured. The alien officers trembled. They had studied hundreds of species, watched civilizations rise and fall. None carried such raw will. One officer whispered the thought they all feared: if one ship still lives, how many more hide in the dark? The commander's chest tightened. The truth was clear. If even a fraction of humanity survived, if even a fraction of their fleets still hid beyond the stars, then the galaxy's balance of power was a lie. Everything they believed safe could burn in days. The warship's weapons shifted. Turrets turned, missile bays opened slightly, not firing but reminding. It was a warning written in steel. The human voice spoke again. "Leave, do not return. The next probe will not be ignored." The transmission ended. The warship drifted back into stillness, yet its presence filled the void like a storm waiting to break. The alien commander gave the only order he could: retreat. Engines roared as the alien fleet turned away, racing back into safer space. Not one officer dared look back at the human ship, yet every mind carried its shadow. When the fleet finally broke into the quiet lanes of hyperspace, the crew collapsed in silence. Not relief, because no one could truly feel safe. The commander stood alone at the viewing deck, staring at the stars rushing past. He knew what the crew feared to say out loud. The truth was already clear. They had woken a ghost, and ghosts never slept forever. The report: the alien fleet fled across the stars, but fear traveled faster than their engines. No one spoke as hyperspace carried them home. Each officer kept their eyes fixed on the floor, afraid even to whisper the word they had read on the human warship's hull: human. When they finally reached the nearest outpost, the commander called for silence. "No one speaks of what we saw," he ordered. His voice was sharp, but his eyes betrayed the weight pressing down on him. Orders, however, could not erase fear. The truth lived in the crew's eyes, and secrets like this never stayed buried. The council chamber was vast and filled with cold light. High officials of the alien empire sat in silence as the commander's report unfolded. He explained the scans, the probes, the voice, and the warning. At first, the council scoffed. One ship cannot frighten an empire, one elder sneered. But then the images appeared. Data pulled from the probes before they were cut off. The hull composition, stronger than any known alloy. The unstable but limitless power core. The fleets in the ancient archives. The face of a soldier who stared at the probe's camera with eyes like iron. The chamber grew silent. The commander finished with the single word etched on the ship. Human. The silence broke into chaos. Voices rose, overlapping in panic. Some denied it. Some demanded proof. Some whispered of old stories, legends of a species that fought with madness and fury, a race that never surrendered, not even when facing extinction. One elder slammed his clawed hand against the table. These are just ghosts. Humanity destroyed itself long ago. But another voice answered, low and steady. If that is true, then what did our scouts see? The council's debate grew louder, but the commander stood unmoving. He had seen the ship awaken. He had heard the voice that carried across the void like judgment. No council word could change that truth. The Empire's military leaders were summoned. Generals and admirals studied the data in grim silence. One by one, their expressions hardened. It is not the size of the ship that matters, one general finally said. It is what it represents. If one warship still lives, then perhaps an entire fleet survives. Perhaps an entire civilization. The word civilization hung heavy in the air. If humans still lived, then the balance of power in the galaxy was nothing but glass waiting to shatter. The admirals discussed responses. Some demanded a strike team to destroy the warship before it grew stronger. Others argued for silence. Better to forget what they had seen than to awaken an old terror. But the commander, standing before them, shook his head. You do not understand. It was already awake. It let us leave. That means it was not afraid. The council chamber grew colder at those words. Not afraid. If humanity had survived, then they had no reason to fear fleets, no reason to fear empires, no reason to fear anything at all. As the debates dragged on, whispers spread through the Empire. Soldiers in barracks, workers in cities, pilots in the hangars, all heard fragments of the truth. A forgotten species had returned. Fear spread faster than fire. Some citizens laughed nervously. It's just a story, they said. A myth to scare children. But others remembered the warnings from history. They remembered the ruins of old wars, worlds burned to ash, fleets shattered without reason. And in those ruins, they remembered the name whispered like a curse. Humans. The commander returned to his quarters, weary. He stared at the stars outside the viewport, but they no longer felt safe. Somewhere out there, in the endless dark, the warship waited, watching. He knew the Empire would try to bury the truth. They would silence reports, erase files, punish those who spoke too loudly. But none of that mattered, because the humans did not need to speak. Their ship had already spoken. It had said, "We are still here." And in the silence of his chamber, the commander whispered the thought he dared not say aloud in the council. If one ship could shake us this deeply, what will happen when we see the fleet? The fear spreads. The Empire did not sleep after the commander's report. Across star systems, leaders argued, soldiers prepared, and whispers grew into shouts. The word human spread like a shadow over every world. Some called for war. We must strike now, generals roared. If humans are awake, we cannot wait until they gather strength. Others urged silence. Do not provoke them. If they survived, they endured by hiding. Let them stay hidden. If we disturb them, we risk a storm the galaxy cannot endure. The council divided. The Empire trembled. At last, a decision was made. A special fleet would be assembled. Not for full war, not yet, but to test. They would send destroyers, cruisers, and carriers into the sector where the human warship had been seen. Their mission was simple. Measure the strength of the ship, push it, and, if possible, destroy it. The commander who first found the human ship was ordered to lead the expedition. He did not argue, but deep inside, dread gnawed at him. He knew what the council did not. The humans had let them go. That choice meant calculation. That choice meant power. The fleet gathered. 24 warships, bristling with weapons, filled with soldiers who pretended to be brave. But in their private thoughts, they remembered the reports, the images, the voice that had spoken like thunder. As they entered the sector, silence fell across the fleet. Scanners searched. Eyes scanned the dark, every officer holding their breath. And there it was, the human warship. It floated where they had left it, dark and still. At first glance, it looked lifeless, like an ancient monument. Some officers dared to relax. "Perhaps it sleeps again," one said. But the commander shook his head. "No, it watches." The fleet formed a circle surrounding the ship. Destroyers lit their targeting beams. Cruisers charged plasma cannons. Carriers launched wings of fighters. The order came down from the High Council, carried across secure comms. Test them. Break them if you can. The first volley of fire streaked across the void. Plasma, rail slugs, and missiles tore toward the human ship. And then, the void itself seemed to roar, the warship's armor lit with a shimmer, an invisible barrier flaring against the barrage. The weapons struck, but none pierced. The human vessel did not move. It simply endured. A second volley was ordered, stronger, faster, brighter. Again, the human ship absorbed it like rain against stone. Panic rippled through the alien crews. Their weapons were among the strongest in the Empire, yet they barely scratched the surface of this single ship. Then the warship answered. One cannon shifted. Not all, just one. Its barrel turned slowly, deliberately, until it aimed at a destroyer. The commander shouted for retreat. But it was too late. A single beam of light tore across the void. Silent. Precise. The destroyer vanished in an instant. Erased in a flash so fast the crew had no time to scream. The alien fleet froze. One cannon, one shot, one ship gone. The human vessel did not move again. Its weapons did not fire another round. It simply floated, calm, waiting, as if to say, that is enough. Do not test us again. The alien commander felt his heart pound in his chest. He knew the truth. The humans were not showing their full power. That single strike was not an attack. It was a warning. His voice cracked as he gave the order. "Retreat now, all ships, retreat!" Engines flared as the fleet pulled back in chaos. No one dared to fire again. No one dared to look too long at the human warship. As the alien ships vanished into hyperspace, the human vessel drifted once more into silence. But its silence was no longer peaceful. It was heavy. It was final. The commander stood on his bridge, pale and shaking. His officers avoided his gaze, afraid to speak. The truth was undeniable now. One ship had broken their fleet without moving an inch, and if this was only one ship, then what slept beyond the stars? The return. The alien fleet limped back through hyperspace, broken not by battle, but by fear. They had fired everything. The human warship had fired once. That was all. The council chamber shook with arguments when the commander delivered his final report. Some leaders demanded silence. Others screamed for war. But one truth silenced them all. One human ship had faced their strongest fleet, and it had not even tried. The commander stood in the center, his voice low and heavy. "You do not understand. It did not destroy us because it chose not to. We were not spared by weakness. We were spared by mercy." The word mercy hung over the chamber like a blade. Outside the council halls, rumors spread faster than light. Whole planets whispered the same question. If one human ship survived, how many more wait in the dark? The Empire tried to hide the truth, but truth has no cage. Traitors carried the story. Soldiers spoke in hushed voices. Citizens told their children the old legends again, no longer as myths, but as warnings. The galaxy stirred with unease. Rival empires began their own investigations. Old archives were opened, ancient battles reviewed. In every record, one word appeared again and again: humans. At the far edge of space, the human warship moved. Not fast, not with the rush of prey or the aggression of hunters. It moved with patience, crossing systems slowly, as if testing the silence of the galaxy. And then, one by one, other signals appeared. First a faint blip, then another, then 10, then dozens. Alien sensors caught them like sparks in the void. More ships, old and scarred, but alive. Human warships, drifting out of shadow, engines burning like stars reborn. The galaxy gasped. The commander who first found them watched the transmissions with wide eyes. His heart pounded with the weight of history. Humanity had not died. Humanity had endured, and now they were returning. The council fell into chaos. "We must negotiate," one elder cried. "Negotiate with monsters?" Another shouted back. "They are not monsters," the commander said quietly, his voice cutting through the storm. "They are survivors. They have faced wars we cannot imagine. They have built weapons we cannot understand. And they have waited. Do you not see? They did not return to beg. They returned to remind us who they are." The chamber went silent. Outside, across the galaxy, the skies changed. Human warships lit the void, not attacking, not conquering, simply moving, revealing themselves. A silent message echoed across every star system. We are still here. We are watching. On distant worlds, alien leaders trembled. Armadas began to prepare, but deep inside, they knew. No shield, no fleet, no empire could erase a truth carved into the void. Humanity was not broken. Humanity was awake, and their return would not be stopped. The commander stood alone on his bridge, staring at the stars. He remembered the voice that had thundered across his fleet. The next probe will not be ignored. He understood it now. The humans were not warning them to stay away from a ship. They were warning the galaxy to stay away from the future they were building. The commander whispered to the stars, though no one would ever hear, "May the galaxy never forget this day. The humans have returned." And far in the dark, the human fleet moved together, silent, steady, unstoppable, like ghosts come back to claim the stars.